So the other day, we did a big chat about whether WWE planning to do Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes Part 3 at WrestleMania 42 was a good idea. Was it a bad idea? I would implore you to go watch this video after we have finished speaking today. But somebody reached out to me and then said, well, Simon, if this is what you're thinking, what do you think WWE is going to do at the Showcase of the Immortals? They did not use taglines because I would not have replied to them. But we are coming to the end of 2025, meaning 2026 is right around the corner, and the Royal Rumble. And by that point, you usually get a good idea about what WWE is going to do and isn't going to do at WrestleMania. So I thought I would put my ASS on the line and try and predict the show. And as you've seen before, I'm going to get this wrong, but you can get mad at me in the comments and then you can subscribe. Because as we know, in the modern day, getting mad at someone on a daily basis is good for Elgia. So we will start with the mega main event on Sunday night because I think that's basically set in stone. Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes Part 3. Now I want to make it very clear, I am not against this at all. I just think Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk is a way more interesting match because we've never seen it before, and some of the things they can get into promo-wise will just make me go, oh my gosh, I can't believe they are talking about this. But on the flip side, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes 3 is going to be drowning in jeopardy. And as I've talked to you about 32,691 times, jeopardy is what you need in all wrestling matches, especially a WrestleMania main event, because you can make the argument either ways, especially if Cody Rhodes' WWE Championship is on the line, which I presume it will be because that's what they fell out about in the build-up and at War Games. So who the flub wins that one? Because it feels to me like throughout 2026, Cody Rhodes is going to be working more dates than Roman Reigns. I have no problem with that. Roman's busted his ass for a decade, so if he's earned that schedule, he's earned that schedule. Doesn't mean from a fan standpoint, watching it on TV, you don't want to see him more. Of course we do. He's a tribal chief, and we absolutely love him. But if he is going to win that championship and then he goes away, like he has done after the past two WrestleManias, maybe then all of a sudden you turn the tide. Also, where does that leave Cody? How does he get a rematch to go after the WWE Championship? But this is also the rub about, because of course Roman Reigns won the first one, Cody Rhodes won the second one. To finish his story, you are really going to have to sit down. I suppose it's a bit like when John Cena and Batista fought in 2008 or wherever the flub it was. Everybody, I remember, was like, well, who is the face of the company? And Batista won that match, but it was still quite clearly John Cena who was getting that rub. And Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns have already reached that level, right? They've already peaked in that sense. But in many ways, you could argue this is WWE deciding, right, Cody, you're going to be our guy, and Roman Reigns, you're the legacy guy, right? And that's what makes it so damn interesting. Do you turn Cody Rhodes heel? That's what somebody else said to me. If you flip these roles, because they didn't believe that Roman could be a bad guy now, because once again, people just love him so much. Whereas Cody, at one point, you'd have to presume, given how WWE operates, and how the fans operate too, will go bad guy. So do we do it now? Does Roman Reigns win the Royal Rumble? Does a Braun Breaker win the Royal Rumble? It does bring up so many questions, and I don't think there's any two doubts about it. You can make arguments that other people are on their level, but WWE in 2025/26 does not have two bigger stars than Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. They are equal face of the company, unless you want to debate that in the comments. So really, that's what WrestleMania was always meant to be about. You take one of these guys, you take the other one of these guys, you throw them into the mix with the WWE Championship, so I can totally get it, and I would be massively intrigued, and I think you're really going to get a large portion of the audience being Team Roman or Team Cody, meaning the tribalism online will get even worse than it already is. But I'm going to, with my prediction hat on, say that WWE will head in this direction, and it'll still be pretty damn big. And that, to me, says that you're also going to get Gunther versus Brock Lesnar. Now, I'm not breaking these down into night one and night two. I'm just trying to take the stars who aren't going to be in the quote-unquote main event and put them elsewhere. But as I think Braun Breaker is going to be preoccupied in another match that we'll talk about in just 1 second, I think getting to the Gunther-Brock Lesnar match is something that people have discussed for the last 2 to 3 years. I don't really know who else Brock Lesnar would actually even have a match with at WrestleMania. It could have been someone like Dominic Mysterio, but I think that's passed us by. That was meant to happen before Brock Lesnar magically disappeared from television. But I think people would be into the idea. It is a big man slapping man meet, quite literally, with Gunther. And as of me talking to you, Gunther has retired Goldberg, and I do believe he's going to win the John Cena tournament and then take on John Cena. I think John Cena will win his last match, but let's create a world where John Cena loses his last bout, which is what John Cena is going to want to do, right? He's going to have to be talked out of that, much like Sting was during his AEW Revolution match. But if Gunther is the last guy to beat John Cena, and then he goes on to WrestleMania to defeat Brock, and he can say within less than a year, I retired Goldberg, I retired John Cena, and essentially I've seen off Brock because he's not going to be back for ages. I really do think you have put a lot of stock in Gunther, and you can push him even higher than he already is. And the interesting part about that is you can argue he's in a very similar position to where Brock was, because so many people are like, oh, Brock Lesnar didn't need the Undertaker win at WrestleMania 30. I've also always disagreed with that. I'm not saying that you had to end the streak, but as soon as Brock Lesnar had done that, WWE rode this end of boss type magic for a decade, which you would not have been able to done unless somebody had gone out there and beat a 22-year-old streak, whatever the flub it was. Longer than that, I can't remember. It was so long ago. So if you're really looking at Gunther and thinking he's 38 years old, we can get 10 years out of this, which again is exactly what we did with Brock. He was in his late 30s. Then I do totally understand it. But of course, at the same time, I think John Cena would probably beat Gunther if he is able to be talked into this. But that's a match I think we're going to get. It doesn't need titles. It's also going to have marquee value, which people like at WWE, especially at WrestleMania. I'm putting it on the ballot. I just mentioned Dominic Mysterio. I think, even though it's quite far away, so stepping there is going to be difficult because, again, how do you make this last for 4 months? I think it is going to be Dominic Mysterio versus Rey Mysterio for that Intercontinental Championship. You want to do it on the biggest stage because I love this feud. Somebody even said to me, and I think I agree with this, but also I worry you may, I don't know, make it a little bit too convoluted. It could be title versus career, right? So Dominic says, fine, father of mine, you deadbeat dad. I will take you on, but if I do beat you, not only do I retain my championship, but you have to retire. I don't think this is the time for Rey Mysterio to retire, unless he wants to. But if that is the case, then yes, you do need all this build, because you need to sell Rey Mysterio as one of the best of all time. All the achievements he did, all the obstacles he overcame. So I suppose you could build to that, but I also think there's a way where Rey Mysterio wins. Everyone's going to love it because everybody loves Rey Mysterio. It's just going to make Dominic Mysterio more of an asshole. Or actually, maybe you could do the reunion itself, and that's when Dominic Mysterio does start to turn babyface. But at the same time, I think it should be Dom that does retire Rey at some point. The point is this. I loved it so much when they did it at WrestleMania a few years ago. Dom is way better than he was. Rey is just a marvel. I'll never be able to understand him. And I actually think putting the Intercontinental title on the line, even though Rey Mysterio at this stage of his career doesn't need to win that, I'd be into it, right? And I suppose really what it comes down to, just to repeat myself, is that Dom versus Rey is one of my favourite feuds that WWE has done in recent times. So don't do it at a Royal Rumble. Don't do it at Elimination Chamber. Go big, go home, do it at WrestleMania 42. There is also a small proviso to that, though, because I think, and I know this has been out there from everybody that's making their guesses, Chris Jericho is going to be on the show. I'm convinced he's coming back to WWE at the Royal Rumble. You could do Dom versus Chris Jericho, which is a fantastic match, especially for the IC title, because Chris Jericho has won that thing like 59 times. And even though we're going to talk about him later, I also think you could do LA Knight versus Chris Jericho, because I think they're somehow two peas of the same pod. And given the opponent I do have for LA Knight, it's a little bit of a pull. I'll just pretend that I didn't talk about this here because I've jumped the gun a little bit. But yes, I think you'll probably get Chris Jericho versus Dom, or Chris Jericho versus somebody like an LA Knight, mostly because you'll be sitting around going, well, how the flub did that happen? But Jericho going to be on the show. I also want Io Sky versus Asuka. That's right, I'm just saying it right now. And every time I bring this up, people say, but Simon, we've seen them fought before. The last time, I believe, was 2023. So that'll be 3 years by the time WrestleMania comes around. And I get that we've seen it in fits and spurts in the War Games or in that tag team match at Crown Jewel. That's not what I want. I want Triple H to sit down with these two. This is what I want, genuinely, as mad as it is, and go, you got 25 minutes, maybe 20, to be more realistic, and you can do whatever you want. You can go as hard as you want. You can slap each other as hard as you want. There's no rules. There's no WWE style. And I guarantee you they will have the best match of the year. Or it will be a contender for it. I don't want no shenanigans, no run-ins. You tell Kairi, saying, I'm really sorry, Kairi, you can't come to the ring. And you tell, I suppose, Rhea Ripley, you can't come to the ring either. Although I'm sure they'll have their own matches too. I just think it would be brilliant. And I'm not saying the window is closing for them to have one final match, but I'm a big supporter of striking when the iron is hot. And they did such good stuff at the back end of 2025, which was mostly multi-person stuff, that I think when eventually you get to the singles feud, it kind of ties into Dom and Rey. I want you to do it on the grandest stage of them all. I want to do it at WrestleMania. Now, this is a very selfish pick, but I'm trying to manifest it into existence. And a few people go, oh, nobody wants to see that, Simon. That's great. You're allowed your opinions. But I think the majority would be like, you know what? I would want to see that. I just think it would be great. I just think it would be awesome. Once again, you don't need any belts on the line, so that can go free up to other feuds. I really think we got to do it. And yes, I think the other main event will probably be CM Punk versus Bron Breakker for the World Heavyweight Championship. My twist being, I think it will be match number 2. I mean, that's a ridiculous thing to say. We already know it's going to be match number 2. But I think Bron Breakker should win on the January 5th Raw, whatever the flub, the first 2026 Raw on Netflix is. I think Bron Breakker should win. I think he should run through CM Punk. And then I think CM Punk's big story for the opening of that year is, old man Punk, old man Snake. This story's been told 1,000 times, the veteran. Can he go? It's Rocky, right? Can he go one last time and beat the crazy Bron Breakker, which eventually he will do at WrestleMania? Now, I absolutely take the point. Why the flub is CM Punk going to have the big win at WrestleMania when Bron Breakker is the future star? I just think WWE likes to do that sometimes. And also, I'm a big advocate of making fans happy, and people love CM Punk. They'll be super happy to see him win. But I also think and this is just me taking WWE's mindset into my own brain, if you're going to beat a star, there's always a payoff, or there's always a retribution. Not that group. Let's not talk about them. But they like to bring balance to the force, right? 50-50 booking has always been talked about in WWE. I'm not saying they're going to go that far, but I think if Bron Breakker wrecks him on that January Raw, I mean, literally just tears him apart and beats him, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then you see CM Punk rebuild himself before we get to that April show, then Punk can beat him, and it's not going to really affect Bron that much, because again, he will have torn him apart in that January show, and he would have had, February, March, 3 months as the champion. And then also you can build up a rematch. I think sometimes I do believe that WrestleMania matches should be OG matches. Like, wow, we've never seen these two people fight before. I can't believe we're getting it. Much like John Cena and Cody Rhodes at last year's WrestleMania. But that one didn't really click in the way we expected. It was way better at SummerSlam. I actually do agree with John Cena when he says you should watch them as a part 1 and part 2. He is correct. But I also think that WrestleMania is better when you're telling emotional stories, and that just goes back into what we have just said. Now, it's all going to depend what does happen on that Raw, which is going down around about a month as of me talking to you. So all of these could be out of date way early. But given that I thought the CM Punk and Cody Rhodes was a better feud, I then started to think, well, what would make Bron Breakker and CM Punk excellent? And I do want to see that match. And I think Punk losing his championship relatively soon as well, which I think would surprise people. Bron going on a tear for 3 months before he absolutely whoops CM Punk in that WrestleMania match, before Punk is able to pull it out. Once again, it's a tale as old as time itself. It's very, very Hollywood. It would work. And then you could even give it back to Bron Breakker at SummerSlam before Punk goes into his other stuff. Hopefully the Cody Rhodes feud. I really want to see that match. I'd also like to see Stephanie McMahon versus Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's Championship. I always get confused which one is WWE and which one is women's. I just think it's a match you want to do. There's not even a hint that Becky Lynch is going to turn back face anytime soon, which is good. Because this heel character, you'll see my end-of-year top 10 list, Becky Lynch is in it. I don't understand some of the criticism she has received. All this Becky Hogan stuff, I'm like, you cannot be watching what I am watching. But I think she's been tremendous. And who is a more genuine babyface than Stephanie McMahon? And she has the belt right now. I wouldn't even mind it. This is going to send you totally nuts if Becky Lynch won the Royal Rumble and spends 3 months berating Stephanie McMahon. Now, the interesting part to this is you would get to the match. I think Stephanie McMahon should win. Of course, we'll do predictions, proper predictions, way closer to the time. But I think Becky is in that phase of her career where she just wants to make people. We all know that Stephanie McMahon can be as big a star as WWE wants to make her, but that all comes down to the people she's working with as well. I just think you get Becky Lynch totally destroying her on the microphone. But again, what's the word I'm even looking for? The genuineness of Stephanie McMahon will come back, and that once again will balance these two out, and the match would be brilliant. You never see Stephanie McMahon have a bad match. Becky Lynch is an awesome in-ring professional, and no one ever gives her the credit for what she can do and how she works around her opponents. Again, I'm looking for big matches, especially when championships are on the line. I don't think we've ever seen Becky versus Stephanie. If we had, I've forgotten about it, which means they haven't had their super-duper-whooper main event match. Do it at 42. Here's my first weird one, right? And it's so hard to figure these people in because some are out injured and some are big stars, but I can't understand where they get on the Jenga puzzle. But it's for the US Championship, and I've got this bizarre thing as look up on my screen of Ilya Dragunov, who I think could hold it for that long, that's not a problem, versus Jacob Fatu, versus Drew McIntyre, versus Solo Sikoa. Now, I do think you could potentially do Drew versus Jacob. Quite clearly, WWE wanted to do that until Jacob had to go get dental surgery. But you can't sort of overstack both these days. I don't want to get to the point where we have 10 matches on night 1 and 10 matches on night 2. That's the whole reason why WWE switched to a weekender, so it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I want to cry. We all remember WrestleMania 35, which went 10 hours, whatever the flub it is. And Solo Sikoa works in there because the Jacob Fatu connection, and then Ilya Dragunov will take on anybody. And WWE, I find, does like doing multi-man matches for their mid-card titles. And Ilya holding on to it for another 4 months or 5 months, I suppose, is kind of crazy, but once again is the US Championship, which really only recently has been bumped back up to where it needs to be. So maybe they all win it, right? Maybe Jacob Fatu has a run, maybe Solo has a run again, maybe Drew has a run, and that's why they do all butt heads. You could do Ilya versus Solo and then Drew McIntyre, Jacob Fatu separately. I just think it's like the Intercontinental title match we did this year with Dom and Finn and Bron Breakker and Penta, right? Man, I don't have Penta on this card. Oh, I do have Penta on this card, I lie. Whew, thank goodness. I was about to worry. Look, I always get it wrong. I think you can argue this one, absolutely. This was very much, I actually pretend I'm Triple H. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have these people on the show. But it's a curious one. I'd actually like your help in the comments. And I want Jade Cargill versus Charlotte Flair, right, for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It's a match the WWE has teased for ages. They even had that meeting of the minds where they looked at each other, as wrestling's love to do, when one was leaving and the other one was coming in. I like Jade Cargill so much, I think she probably should hold that belt to WrestleMania. And I actually think that Charlotte now has been accepted as a babyface because her tag team with Alexa Bliss has been so good. I can't see that tag team lasting all the way to WrestleMania, which is a shame. Please prove me wrong, WWE, because my gosh, do I love the women's tag team division when it's allowed to absolutely fly. But I do think it's a match that feels like a generational clash. You also have Jade Cargill, who for a long time was the AEW guy, moving into WWE, now the WWE guy, versus Charlotte. There's always been in that system. I think you could create jeopardy, and I think Charlotte Flair is awesome at getting really interesting matches out of people. I seem to be the outlier. I love Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair from this year's WrestleMania. It feels like a fight. It doesn't feel like a wrestling match. I don't want everything to be smooth and look choreographed, although I love that as well. And when you do have a double card like WrestleMania, if you do want to sit down and watch it match back to back to back, you want a couple where you're like, what the flub is going on? And I think they did that wonderfully. And Charlotte's done that before. I actually think it's a huge positive that she does have. And she could do it with Jade Cargill too. And also, given the way that WWE pitches stars, this is very similar to Becky versus Stephanie. Just do it, right? It's a match that people want to see. So just get it done, build it to WrestleMania, then it's going to feel even bigger. I would not have Charlotte Flair win the Royal Rumble. I think that'd be a bad idea after she won it this year. But I want to see that match, and you could hold it off to SummerSlam, but why bother? Do it here instead. So this is another one of my weird ones, and I hate saying this, but there was a report the other day that maybe LA Knight is just never going to be the guy in WWE because they don't see him that way. I want to point out he's still having a terrific run. Like, he's an upper mid-card, sometimes main event star, sells a bunch of merchandise, was a journeyman, that's a little bit unfair, but like really put the hours in to get to where he is now, and he's smashing it, and everybody loves him. And even though sometimes his booking is nuts, he gets massive invasions all the time. LA Knight, when all is said and done, is going to have a tremendous wrestling run. But I kind of feel like, and I'm exaggerating because it's nowhere near as bad as it was for Dolph Ziggler back in 2018, but it does kind of feel like he's fallen into that area where he's going to be perma over, right? Everyone's always going to love him, but it means you can quote unquote feed him to other people that you want to get over. And that's why I think this is very strange, because how does it even all come together? This was just my way when I sat down. I was like, who do I want to get on this card from NXT? And the first name was Obafemi. And I thought, how do you get Obafemi over, that's a stupid thing I've ever said, to a mainstream audience or a main roster audience that may not be familiar with NXT, instantly? You haven't beat someone like LA Knight. And then when I saw that report, I was like, man, if that is true, and always take that stuff with a pinch of salt because we don't know, maybe they would be happy to do it. And Obafemi just totally wrecks in 1, 2, 3. I think Obafemi should be main eventing WrestleManias within 2 to 3 years. That's how great he is. But there's always at least one match I never see coming on these WrestleManias. And given that I can get away with it because it is December 2025 and I've got till April 2026 to go, well, I didn't know what was happening. I also don't know what else Obafemi can do now on NXT. He's never really been a full-on babyface. He's never really been a full-on heel. He's always been on the middle because he's just such an intimidating dude that you don't need to say, oh, we need to do the babyface run or we need to do the heel run. I mean, you could argue that Trick Williams probably needs to be on that WrestleMania as well, and I don't have him on. I just think Obafemi versus someone. And the only reason it became LA Knight is because, oh my gosh, I haven't put LA Knight on this card. And please don't have LA Knight miss WrestleMania. That would actually make me sad. Here's another curveball for you based on the interview that Seth Rollins did the other day, where he seemed pretty confident that he was going to be at WrestleMania. But obviously, if we were going to do Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins, that is now gone. I do not want to do a triple threat match from nowhere, which I'm worried that WWE may do. So it will be Roman versus Cody, then Seth will be thrown into the mix. I actually think what you could do, and it was heavily teased at the start of 2025, is just go to the Sami Zayn-Seth Rollins feud. Now, originally, I thought when we did pay that off, it was going to be Sami beating Seth for the World Heavyweight Championship. But wrestling pivots all the time and things move. And maybe if there was a plan for Sami to become the world champion, it's not going to happen anymore, which would be awful. But you can tie into all the promos they did do earlier in 2025. You always want to have a banger match on WrestleMania, which was what they would do. Sami Zayn is also awesome at WrestleMania, as is Seth Rollins. So I think you just put them together. And also it's a match you can have on paper that maybe if Seth Rollins does come back, he's only 85%. Who do you want to put him with? The guy that had a match with the Jackass crew a few years ago and made that one of the matches of the year. Also, I just quite like to see it because I like Sami Zayn, I like Seth Rollins, and I really did enjoy their interactions a few months ago. It's like Britney Spears says, just do it again. Now, I warn you now, I do not have a SmackDown tag team match on this show. I'm just going off what happened at WrestleMania 42. I'm still living in hope that one day Triple H wakes up and merges these titles together. But I've also made the crazy decision to decide that AJ Styles and Dragon Lee are still going to be the champions. Maybe they lose the belts at some point before it does come back round to them. But I was kind of thinking that it was very curious that Penta and Phoenix were going to have some AAA matches soon. They were going to get back together down there. And that made me think, I imagine their first one in WWE would probably be at WrestleMania because that's a way to almost sort of bring up the enthusiasm again. Because the first time's always going to be the best. And if the first reunion's down in AAA, you're like, why didn't they do it in WWE? Well, maybe because it's a success down there. When all of a sudden they say, oh, hi, we are going to challenge for the Raw Tag Team belts and we're going to do it at WrestleMania. Also, what a great match this would be. AJ Styles, one of the best of all time. Dragon Lee, when he's allowed to go, is ridiculous. And we all know the story with Penta and Phoenix. I think it would have the emotion. You could probably do the title change, the brothers winning at WrestleMania. And that also takes the belt off AJ Styles as he continues on through his 2026, which is going to be his last year as an active wrestler. Because ultimately, his last few matches have to be in singles feuds because he's mostly been a singles guy. This is probably me fantasy booking a little bit, but honestly, I never know what WWE is going to do with the tag team belts, so you can kind of have free reign. The next one I'm so confident about, I am going to say with 99.9% certainty, this is going to happen. Now, a lot of it is based on random things that have come out recently, and you're going to get mad at this. Maybe you can go on social media and go, this guy's an idiot. Who gave him a platform? It's a great question. I don't know. But I think our big celebrity match is going to be Bronson Reed and Logan Paul, who now have their connection in the division, taking on Randy Orton and his new best friend, based on a documentary I saw the other day, I Show Speed. Now, I think Speed is going to be in the Rumble. I think Speed is going to have his first proper match at WrestleMania. Of course, you want to do Speed versus Logan Paul because it's influencer versus influencer, and Bronson Reed can be the guy that takes care of the heavy lifting, as can Randy Orton. Now, you'll be saying, Simon, that can't possibly be the Randy Orton match at WrestleMania. He don't even get on SmackDown at the moment. Something very curious is going on with Randy, but he did seem quite taken with I Show Speed when I watched the footage of them training together, and Logan Paul's obviously going to have a match, and now that he has found himself in the vision, you'd have to imagine there's a payoff to all of that. I'm not even going to say anything else because I want to use this clip when it does get announced. I'm going to post it on the internet with December 2025 written in the corner, and I'm going to be a smug asshole. Then it's not going to happen. I'm going to look like an idiot, but that's fine because I'm an idiot right now. I'm also going to hope that either the Women's IC Championship or the Women's US Championship is going to be defended on this show. I doubt we get both, but I do not know. So, from nowhere, I kind of looked at people that should be on WrestleMania, and I came up with, what is it? It was Chelsea Green versus Alexa Bliss versus Tiffany Stratton versus Julia. I know, that's pretty lame. But these are all people right now that I don't really know where they're going, especially if Charlotte and Alexa break up. Does Chelsea Green hold on to that belt for the next 4 months? I mean, potentially. Poor Julia is in no man's land. It makes no sense. And Tiffany Stratton hasn't come back since she lost it at whatever pay-per-view it was. I can't remember now. So I don't know where she's going to slot in. These are just people that I think should be on the show. And it kind of ties into my next match too, which is Bayley and Lyra versus Nia Jax and Lash Legend, which could be for the women's tag team titles. I suppose you could probably do that. That's quite a lame match. I know. Not in a bad way. Like, these are all fantastic wrestlers. I'm not saying that. But you would need a really big program. I just sat there and I thought, well, these are all people that are focused on television, on both Raw and SmackDown all of the time. How are they going to get on WrestleMania? But then you have to remember how many superstars haven't got on WrestleMania over the last couple of years. And like, wow, I can't believe that person's not being featured, because even over the 2 nights, it's still pretty tough to get on those cards. cards. And Bayley versus Lyra for the IC title actually could be a match. I mean, how you get that back off Maxine, I don't know. But we have been teasing Bayley's going to go crazy. And of course, now that Becky Lynch has lost the IC championship, Lyra Valkyria is allowed to go after it again. And we never really paid off Bayley versus Lyra either. I don't know. I mean, maybe Lash Legend doesn't get on. She's only just debuted on the main roster. That happens too. And it's the same with Nia Jax. She's missed WrestleManias as well. So maybe Bayley versus Lyra for the IC championship is actually a better one. And that would make me super happy because it would mean that both women's mid-card titles get on here. But if that does go down, I can actually see Chelsea Green, Alexa Bliss, Tiffany Stratton and Julia being on the SmackDown before or something like that, or the Raw after, which is also a little gimmick the WWE likes to lean into. But, I know there's lots of people I have lost. Or left out, I should say. But we're running out of space here, man, which is why you soon realise booking wrestling is really hard. Now, you're going to have a bunch of ideas, and there's always at least two people I have forgotten, but I don't care, because I think that Logan Paul I Show Speed Pull is so good. I'm so convinced I'm going to be totally wrong. But please do drop me a comment down there. Let me know how bad these are and other suggestions you may have. Nothing more important than that. And we can revisit these in a couple of months to see if we are smart or a bunch of nerds. Like the video, share the video. Please do subscribe and hit that notification bell. There will be a video on the screen right now, which I'd also appreciate you click. I will not teach you. I'll just be talking about wrestling. If you like this, you'll probably like that too. Otherwise, if you'd like to support me more, it's patreon.com/Simon316. That's where you can get my wrestling watch-alongs, where you watch a bunch of matches and you can suggest stuff, and I'm happy to watch them too. There's no rules either. We'll watch whatever. Otherwise, grillermind.com/Simon. Use code Simon to get 10% off. And there's a new subscription program now as well, where if you're in the US, you get constant discounts. You get constant free shipping. So make sure you go check that out again. Put my code in to access the extra stuff. I would not promote these things if I don't use them. I do. I think they're the best. Come say hello at Simon316. Otherwise, TikTok for stupid, funny videos. I think they're funny. You can go disagree with me. That's the nature of the 2025 world. Cameo for holiday messages. Just search for my name. Same with Pro Wrestling Tees. More importantly, as we are heading towards the end of the year, people are sending me all their YouTube rap stuff, etc., etc. Thank you so much for supporting the channel as much as you have. It blows my brain that you still care, because I have been doing this a long time. I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So have a wonderful 2025 or the end of, and keep kicking ass in 2026.